You're listening to the Floyd Main Street Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, and if you have listened to the most recent episode of our podcast, you heard that we were looking to reach out to candidates for the Indian Valley District of our upcoming Board of Supervisors primary. We wanted to reach out to both candidates and ask them some questions about some important topics that you, the listeners, have made very clear that are important to you. I will start this out by saying that we reached out to both candidates. I've only heard from one, called and texted the other camp. We haven't heard from them as of this recording, but we did hear back from Mrs. Bechtold. So today, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Miss Kalinda Bechtold with us on the Floyd Main Street Podcast. How you doing, Kalinda?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. And I'm going to try and pronounce your name correctly because after I watched your video on your Facebook page for your board position, I realized that I've been pronouncing your name wrong these last 4 years that I've known you. So if I slip up and say Kalinda instead of Kalinda, you just smack me, do whatever you need to do, okay?
I'm good. You can call me just about anything and I'll answer.
So in case you don't know, Ms. Bechtold here, again, is running for re-election of the Indian Valley District of the Board of Supervisors here in Floyd County. And we're just going to sit down and just ask her a few questions, have a real informal, casual conversation. This is meant to inform you, the listener. Get to know Ms. Bechtold a little bit more, what she stands on, what's important to her, and the direction that she has and the vision she has for this county. So, Kalinda, how long have you and your husband, your family, been in Floyd? And then the second part of this question I have for you is, how long were you here when you decided, and what prompted you to want to run for the Board of Supervisors?
So we've been here just over 10 years. We'd been looking to get out of the rural area of California for quite a while. Keeping up with everything, the high taxes and everything else was just getting too much. And my mom met her new husband online. He lives in Czech. She got married and we followed her out here as quickly as we could.
That's cool.
What prompted me to run? I had been at a seminar up in Franklin County and people were saying, if you don't like what's going on, get involved. And I thought, okay, I'll do whatever is put in my path. And not but 2 weeks later, Justin Coleman announced that he wasn't going to run for re-election for Board of Supervisors. And I thought, okay, this is my chance.
There's your sign.
This is a huge position that greatly impacts how the county is and what the county's future looks like. And I thought, this is pretty impactful and I can really make a difference.
Yeah.
And having looked at previous board actions, I thought, it's time.
And you're finishing up your first term, correct? So you've got 4 years of experience with the county under your belt.
4 years of lots of experience. Doing lots and lots of reading. I'd never, ever take anything at face value or what's presented. I always do tons of reading. When I knew I was going to run, I printed my own version of the comprehensive plan and read it and researched all the details of what that meant and realized that this county is on the brink of breaking if we didn't get it corrected.
There are a lot of issues that people have taken up with. We don't have probably time to talk about all of them, but I would like to dive a little bit into a couple of the big concerns I think that our listeners have. Just to open up with one of them, this subdivision ordinance. Will you just explain essentially what the changes presented in that subdivision ordinance are, and then what are the problems with that? Because at the surface level, it may sound like a good thing, but when you look at the infrastructure and the logistics, it creates a very big problem, doesn't it?
Correct. So the subdivision ordinance was up for review long before my term started, and COVID threw that all into a mess, and it finally just got taken back up. The subdivision ordinance has been in place for a long time. It's required by state code. These new revisions potentially allow for fewer parcels on newly created roads, which will help. Right now, our subdivision ordinance allows 2-acre lots, and I believe that 2-acre lots will really compromise our ability to prevent too much water being taken out of the ground. On a 2-acre lot, if you, with our terrain and topography and everything else, if you punch a well and your well happens to go dry during a drought, you might not be able to find another water source on that 2 acres. So I would like to have larger lots. I really want to preserve the agricultural nature of our county, and smaller lots we're going to turn into asphalt.
What was the statistic that you had provided on your social media page that what the population was and then how many wells went dry?
Right.
And then we've got 4,000 more people in the county since that happened.
Correct. So our last major drought was in the late 80s, and over 300 wells went dry. 300 replacement well permits were pulled. A lot of people did just abandon their homes. Our population was 11,000 during the last major drought. It's over 15,000 now. There's no more water in the county now than there was then, but the demand on that resource is amazing.
Yeah.
Also, when our wells for the PSA were drilled, their production now is 77% of what it was when those wells were new. So that shows that when you have development around the areas of a well, the well produces less water. Because all of our water comes from the sky. We have no surface storage. We have no underground storage of significance. So all of our water is stored in cracks and fissures, little tiny pockets of water in the rock that you hit when you drill a well.
Yeah. Until I had read that myself, it's not even something I'd even considered. When you're breaking down the lots, I think people just take it at face value as they don't want a subdivision.
Right.
In its entirety
Right.
in their county, which I understand, but it's not just about that. There's a lot of logistics that go with that.
The subdivision ordinance is very misleading by its name. It's actually the subdivision of property, not a subdivision like people think of a planned neighborhood.
Right.
So we've renamed it land division ordinance because that more appropriately reflects what it truly is.
Yeah.
I would like to see more changes in the land division ordinance. I would like to have taken out the option for shared well and septic systems, which would allow for smaller lots. I think trying to encourage or allow that in any way is just asking for trouble. And like anything else, it's such a limited resource. Mm-hmm. Like goldfish in a bowl, you can only put so many in before you run out of water.
Right. And that's going to be a big problem to have if we don't figure
Yes,
that
it
out
is.
until it gets here. Well, moving on, that's a huge topic that we could dive really far into. I would encourage any listener that has any further questions about that and anything else that we're talking about to reach out to Ms. Bechtold. I have found that she is more than available anytime. Don't hesitate to do that. Let's talk about the green boxes in the county. I know that there's been a lot with that too. The bears are out. They've been hibernating in the winter. Of course, they've been out for a while now, but they cause some major issues. It's caused some of these garbage sites to be temporarily taken down. The county's looking at a long-term plan for that. Do you want to touch on that a little bit for people that don't know what the goal is for this?
Absolutely. So the green boxes are an amazing resource in the county that most of them are on private property, which greatly limits what we can do with them because it's up to the property owner how much tolerance they have for the mess. And people are becoming less and less tolerant for what goes on at the green boxes. We do occasionally have to pull green boxes when the bears have come out of hibernation and are finding their buffet at the green boxes, and they're making a huge mess, and it becomes a real problem with other agencies, with landowners, and just the amount of time it takes to pick up that trash every day. So we've been exploring every option at least 10 times. We've dug up dead horses to beat them out. We've looked at everything you can possibly imagine, and the only feasible solution that we could come up with was convenience centers, a chained area that you can dump your trash. It's closed at night with a closing gate, keep the bears out. It will also control how much waste is coming in from out of the county, which is a huge problem. Taking care of the trash is one of our largest uncontrolled expenses, and we have to get a handle on this. So we have a convenience center out on Franklin Pike, and we're building one out in Willis.
I think the one on Franklin Pike's really nice. And the good thing is that if trash does blow out or something did get in there, a smaller rodent animal or something, it's contained.
Right.
Anybody that's been by any of those sites that are on private property the morning after a bear had his way, not that I wouldn't understand what happened, but I would be a little upset that there was that much trash on my property because it could be a mess. It definitely was a problem. I'm glad to see, though, that the county's taking some initiative here to find a long-term solution and on property that will belong to them so that there isn't a private property issue moving forward. But it's a good thing, but it costs money.
This transition costs money, but doing nothing is going to actually cost more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about road paving, too. I know one of the more recent board meetings, there was a lot brought up about Firehouse Road specifically, I believe. And I think a lot of people discovered, myself included, that it's not just as simple as, hey, I live on the dirt part of Firehouse. I'm going to call VDOT and ask them to come pave it. There are stipulations and boxes that have to be checked for that to happen, right?
There are. And VDOT is a state agency, and we are a local agency, and we don't have control over the state agencies. VDOT comes to us every month. We give them a list, which they know it's not all inclusive, but we talk about whatever issues we've got going on. They are very aware of our road conditions. The road conditions in Floyd County are very similar to all of our outlying counties, so it's an ongoing issue everywhere. We tell VDOT what we want. He takes it back to his office. Who knows what happens to it from there, but we don't have that say over what VDOT does. There's different buckets of money. There's different paving plans that have different criteria, and all of that is up to VDOT. It doesn't matter how passionate we are about something. If it doesn't meet VDOT's standards for paving in place, rural, rustic, it doesn't meet the criteria.
Right.
And it's up to them. There's this wonderful system called Smart Scale that VDOT uses to appropriate money. And apparently Floyd County is very low on the Smart Scale list for funding.
Yeah.
And
imagine that.
yeah, it's surprising. It's very frustrating. People think that we can say, hey, fix this, but it comes at the expense of, if we want all the potholes fixed, that means there's going to be no paving and no overlay.
Yeah.
And pothole fix is a temporary problem. As we know, they all pop up the next winter. So it has to be done in conjunction with overlay plan.
And it sounds like a balancing act too.
It is.
Work in conjunction with VDOT to make sure things get done and what little money is there gets spent the best way possible.
Right. That's their area of expertise. So we tell them what we want and they decide what they're going to do.
Yeah. One more thing I think's a big topic, especially in your district, because there's been some people questioning things about the Indian Valley Rescue Squad, but just the situation of EMS as a whole right now. Very simply put, I think some people look at it as, at one point, we had volunteer rescue here, we had people that maybe would be available, and now we don't have those people. There has been some transition, some change in the EMS system within the county, but there's also some staffing and some logistical challenges there that the county's having a hard time, I believe, overcoming. Do you mind just talking to that and kind of ease the mind, I guess, of any listener that have some concerns about this situation?
It's a huge concern of mine. I was a registered nurse in California for 25 years. Rural, if you were lucky in the wintertime, you would come down off the mountain on a snowmobile, and it would be an hour of snowmobile travel one way, and then you get picked up where the road was clear, and then you got to the hospital.
Wow.
So I understand how the quality of care in an ambulance makes the difference between life and death. So we'll start with the volunteers. Volunteerism is down across the country in every aspect of every realm of volunteerism. That's the same for our Floyd County volunteer life-saving. Their quantity of volunteers had diminished greatly over the years, and they were just at a handful of volunteers when the state imposed these new regulations regarding medications, and that was the most significant one. Volunteers looked at it for a long time. We worked with them for a long time, and they decided they could not meet the new state requirements, and they would have to not be first responders anymore. And they took their assets, their physical assets, donated them to the county, kept their monetary assets, and that was what their bylaws required of them. We did offer for the existing Floyd County volunteers to come on board with us, and some of them did get trained with our new medical director and are running now as volunteers with paid staff.
Okay.
Dr. Patterson, our new medical director, is an amazing doctor, wants nothing but the highest quality of care and consistent standards across all the districts he takes care of. So he's raising the bar for our medical care. You're going to get high quality care when a truck shows up to your house.
Sometimes staffing is just simply, that's the issue.
Correct.
It's lack of staffing.
That's the problem. Dr. Patterson came and spoke a couple weeks ago, and this is also what he reinforced is EMS staffing is short across the country. It's not just a Floyd County or New River Valley issue. Nobody wants to do this job. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
So there's a shortage of staffing everywhere. And the county's been doing everything they can to encourage people to come and work for us. We've increased benefit packages. Just on Tuesday, we increased the insurance retirement, or the VRS portion. We are now going to be offering hazard duty retirement option. So the amount paid at retirement it will be significantly higher.
Is it partnered through VRS or
It is through VRS.
Okay, that's a great perk. I think that allows years of service to be lower. I think you can retire sooner. And I mean, there's some perks really that are really good in there. So anything you can do to incentivize and make that job look more attractive, because it's an issue that every bit of public safety in our county's always faced, is that they could go out the front door to Christiansburg or go out the back door and go to Roanoke or somewhere else and do the same job in that location and make a good bit more money. And so there's always been a staffing issue with that. But being competitive and being proactive in it, I think, is what's important, because the second you're not proactive, all the other places are going to continue to be proactive, and then you're going to be really behind.
Right. It's such a complicated issue because you need to balance cost and the cost on the taxpayers. On Monday, just a few days ago, we actually had 3 fully staffed trucks. And Monday was one of the busiest call days that we've had in a long time. Yeah. And we were able to provide that service.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because for anybody that's concerned about your district in the Valley, though, the Indian Valley EMS station is actually staffed. It's not staffed 24/7 right now, but it is staffed, and there was some data collection there to determine when the peak times were, when the most calls were coming through, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dustin did that study for us, and it was a long study. It wasn't just a 1-month study. So it was, I believe, over a year. He had collected data for when the most calls were, and there is generally a staffed truck out at Station 4, and you might not see them. They often park inside to keep the truck either cooler or warmer, depending on the season, but there are often...
There's somebody there. And I know the goal would be to have that staffed all the time.
Correct.
And that's what it seems like we're working towards.
We're working hard towards it.
Ms. Bechtold, what makes you the better choice for any undecided voter that's out there in your district that might be listening to this, that is just trying to get their bearings about the situation and become informed? If they were to look at you and ask that question, what makes you the better candidate for this position, what would your answer be?
Well, I have 4 years of experience now. I give 110% to this little job. Little because it pays $300 a month, but I spend more time and effort and energy doing this than people can really comprehend. When we are presented a board packet, I don't just read what's given to me. I do my research to know fully what's being presented. When there's decisions to be made about businesses that might want to come into the county, I know what they are before they come in. I know what the liability is of that company, what the risk is, and is it a good fit for our county? Because not every business can be served adequately by our resources, our infrastructure of water, sewer, law enforcement, fire. We really need to take all of that into consideration, and I do, and I've done the research. I've been part of the water bank study with Virginia Tech. I didn't just read the study. I wasn't just part of the team. I understand geology. It's one of my passions. I printed all of the previous water studies, read them, did the research. I understand the problems. I think it's my dedication to doing the best for the county with never looking at what's best for me personally, my friends or family. I've got that bias is not in my choice. It's what's best for you, what's best for everybody else, not what's best for me.
Yeah. Ms. Bechtold, I appreciate you coming on to the Floyd Main Street podcast today. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but we wanted to hit on some of these major topics that are going on because the primary is coming up soon. And so we thank you for coming and joining us and just having an open discussion about things that are going on in the county. And we wish you luck and everything moving forward. And
absolutely,
as always, any of our listeners, if they want to reach out to Ms. Bechtold, if you want to go over the ways, I know you've got email and phone and all other ways here.
Thank you for having me. My phone number is 540-838-5453 is my personal cell. My email is kbechtold, BECHTOLD @floydcova.gov. Anybody can call me. The election is on June 17th at Indian Valley School.
Good deal. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a good day. Reminder, June 17th, that is on a Tuesday. It's coming up very soon. So if you live in Indian Valley, exercise your civic duty and vote. And that's what I'll leave y'all with. But I hope y'all have a good evening. Remember to take care of yourselves and the ones you love. Bye-bye.